Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Gray Matter. We've got a splendid guest for you today. He's Seamus Bruner. He's an author and director of research at the Government Accountability Institute. It's great to have you on the program, Seamus. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hey Leighton, it's great to see you.
We're going to talk. I'm going to introduce Seamus in more detail. He has quite a resume. He's doing a lot of very interesting things, including writing masterful books. I've read one of them called Controligarchs, and I'll set it up this way. If you were to post on the internet or social media today that the world is being run by a small group of uber rich billionaires who are controlling absolutely everything, you'd probably be called a conspiracy theorist. But what if you took the time and the energy and the resources and you could talk to the right people and look at the right places and actually prove that this is happening? This is precisely what Seamus has done with his most recent book called Controligarchs. I just finished reading it, highly recommended it. It's a splendid book. I was saying to Seamus off camera that I had a love-hate with the fact that it has a lot of Canadian content. That's not necessarily a good thing for our country, I'm afraid. But before we go and we dive in more deeply with Seamus, as we always do, we're going to go to our framing aphorisms. And these are from characters who loom large in Seamus's most recent book. First, from Bill Gates in 1997, he said, just in terms of allocation of time resources, religion is not very efficient. There's a lot more I could do on a Sunday morning. And believe me, he's been doing a lot of things on a Sunday morning that aren't very good for humanity. The second is from another person featured in the book, Mark Zuckerberg, known to others as Zuck, who said there's a huge need and a huge opportunity to get everyone in the world connected, to give everyone a voice and to help transform society for the future. Well, you won't like the transformation for society that is talked about in Controligarchs. And next, from another man talked about in the book, George Soros, who said, I've made my life's mission to destroy the United States. I hate this country. I hate all the people in it. He said that in Newsweek in 1979, if you can believe it. And finally, from our friend Klaus Schwab, who's had a lot of influence over Canadian governance in recent years, over the past decade, who said the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. Accent on our. He's not talking about us, folks. He's talking about them. So who's our guest today? Well, I mentioned Seamus Bruner. He has collaborated with investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer since 2011 and joined GAI, that's the Government Accountability Institute, in 2013, contributing research and support to multiple New York Times bestsellers. And Bruner's work has appeared on the front pages of the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, and has led to several 60 Minutes exposés. He's also the author of several books, including Compromised: How Money and Politics Drive FBI Corruption, Fallout, Nuclear Bribes, Russian Spies, and Washington Lies. I'm looking forward to reading that one next. And the one I just finished reading, Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. Seamus, I want to talk to you about Controligarchs first. And maybe a question you haven't got in some of your interviews, but I'm curious about this because, of course, I'm a Canadian myself, and much of our audience is. Um, Canada is in many people's minds, an insignificant country. We only have about 1/9 the population of the United States. We don't have much of a military. We're generally not controlling things internationally. But from reading your book, it seems clear that Canada plays a crucial role in what these control oligarchs are doing. And I'm curious about, why do you think that is? Why Canada?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. It's a foothold of kind of the Brussels and Davos elite in the North American space. You know, it's very close to the United States, so a big trade partner with the United States. And so I think it's kind of like a real foothold that doesn't have the same U.S. Constitution and kind of the same feeling towards Europe, and Americans have a lot of gun ownership and don't want to listen to Brussels, certainly.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like a globalist place over here in our side of the world.
Hmm. Now, in talking about Controligarchs, firstly, a very clever title. Maybe just set up for us. What do you mean by it? Who are these Controligarchs? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And why is it a bad thing for us, quote unquote, regular people?
Yeah, so I've, as you mentioned, I've worked with Peter Schweitzer since 2011. We've investigated pretty much every form of political corruption that you can. We had the books on Clinton and the Bush family, as well as the Biden family. We had Secret Empires, Profiles in Corruption. I mean, there's so many Schweitzer books, too many to list. And at the end of every book, an investigation that we do, we put out reports as well. You get this feeling that the politicians, the political class, are not the ones calling all the shots. I think also in the wake of, in the aftermath of the global COVID pandemic, people really feel that. But years before, you didn't always have this things that I would have even said are conspiracy theory years ago: social credit score, digital ID, central bank digital currencies, all topics in the book. You'd think maybe those are conspiracy theories. After the pandemic, it became obvious that the bureaucrats are taking their cues and their scripts really from the billionaire class. So people like Anthony Fauci and the health ministers in your country and all around the world, they didn't dream up 6 feet and 2 weeks to slow the spread and wearing a mask at all times and social distancing and all that. Those things came from either Gates Foundation or Rockefeller Foundation white papers, some of them years and years before the pandemic. So
Right.
decided to follow the money above the political class to this billionaire class of people that I decided, the word Controligarchs, a portmanteau of control and oligarchs, that was just a temporary placeholder title while I was writing the book, and it stuck. It was so descriptive and accurate. These are the oligarchs that want to control your life.
Hmm. One of the fascinating things about your book is how you weave together kind of the backstories of some of these people and how they work together. For example, I had no idea about the relationship between Bill Gates and his father's law firm and how that is all part of the out of the picture, or the backstory about, how Klaus Schwab met Henry Kissinger, or how Bill Gates became involved with Anthony Fauci. When you started delving into this and researching it, were you shocked by some of these connections, or was it something that you expected to find when you began your investigative journalism of these people?
a lot of the things that I uncovered were shocking to me then and still now. I mean, so with Gates and his father, it's quite obvious that, and it's not like a secret that offspring, use their parents' connections to
Nepotism, sure.
achieve higher aspirations than their parents could have. So
Hmm.
it's not entirely shocking, but just that's kind of where I always start when looking into someone is, well, who were their parents? What did their
Yeah.
parents do, and how did their parents kind of shape their life? And so, in the case of Bill Gates Sr., William Gates, they're- I'm trying to remember because it's like they have an odd convention. It's like junior,
Yeah.
senior, the second, and the
Yeah.
third. I think Bill Gates, the head of Microsoft that we know, is the third, but his father, the second, I think, is. He's an intellectual property attorney. He's
Hmm.
passed recently, but he was an intellectual property attorney. He really pioneered the use of like licensing deals. He was up in Seattle. He always has been up in the Pacific Northwest. And long before Bill Gates was even a twinkle in his parents' eye, his father was representing medical device companies, like the company that made the defibrillator. He represented, some software companies even before Microsoft was made. And so there's Bill Gates, the father, is responsible for Starbucks. He's responsible for Costco. A lot of these companies up in Seattle, even Amazon got a huge
Hmm.
chunk of Microsoft for its start. So many of these companies that kind of took over and consolidated the market share and became really monopolies of sorts in their fields, close to monopolies, they all had the same intellectual property attorney advising them. And so I thought, well, that's really interesting because young Bill Gates, the one we know today, he was very young when he was put in charge of Microsoft and when it grew. I mean, he almost certainly didn't did it. I know for a fact he didn't do any of the coding really of the operating systems that you know as Windows. He purchased those, used licensing deals,
Yeah.
kind of some suspicious activity to get those deals. I mean, people, all kinds of accusations made against theft and whatnot like that. So that was interesting to me. Then moving forward, it was, once he's fully in control of Microsoft and it's starting to gobble up all the market share and become the largest operating system on the planet, it got into trouble with antitrust regulators in the United States. People who accused, the Justice Department accused Microsoft of using anti-competitive business practices. And what came out during that trial was a strategy called Embrace, Extend, Extinguish. This was a Bill Gates strategy where they would embrace the current standards, extend their reach, put their operating system and their internet browser on every machine, and then seek to extinguish the competition. In the case of Netscape was one of the examples given back in the 90s. But I thought about it, and it's like, well, this is the exact same thing he's trying to do with the farming. And in fact, Amazon, which is kind of a derivative project, it got a lot of Microsoft money in the beginning. Amazon does the same thing, nothing to see here. And next thing you know, putting mom and pops and all kinds of local businesses out of business. So this monopolization strategy, they're using it in pretty much every field.
One of the interesting things about your book, and I think that people wonder about, obviously, there's an intense fascination with people who are fabulously wealthy beyond most people's imaginations. But one of the things that you do very well is you answer this question about what is the motivation of the Davos crowd, the people who, fly to Switzerland on private jets and burn all kinds of fuel and then pontificate to us mere plebes about, our carbon footprint. But you actually have an explanation for what motivates these people. You want to explain about that a little bit?
Well, sure. The reason Controligarchs became the name is just they really do have a strong desire to control things. They think they know better than the rest of us. They think they make better decisions than the rest of us. I lead the book up with the first chapter is titled "The Good Club," which is actually a real name of a group of people headed up by Bill Gates, George Soros, Ted Turner, who founded CNN and other Turner Broadcasting, a huge media magnate. Oprah Winfrey's at this event, and many others, Wall Street types. It's hosted at Rockefeller University. And just a quick point from before, the whole antitrust strategy, Embrace, Extend, Extinguish, is really something the Rockefellers pioneered a century ago. And so there's a lot of analogs, by the way, between Rockefeller and Gates. I mean, he really must have studied the Rockefellers. They worked together on so many projects, the Rockefeller and Gates foundations. And a lot of people don't know that MSNBC, the M and S stand for Microsoft. It's one of the top 5 news companies in the States. The NBC stands for, NBC, National Broadcasting Corporation, which was that's headquartered at 30 Rockefeller Plaza in New York City. That is a Rockefeller creation. So MSNBC, which is a very far left news outlet, was a merger of sorts, or a joint venture of sorts between Gates's empire and Rockefeller's empire. So it really does extend through today. But on the Good Club and the meeting in May 2009 at Rockefeller University in New York, they get together. Barack Obama has just been elected. All of these billionaires there, Gates, Soros, et cetera, they want to figure out how to make the most of their investment. They all did a lot to get Barack Obama as president, and they want to make sure they make the most and maximize his presidency. So the topic of discussion of the first inaugural meeting of the Good Club, and how could they be bad with a name like the Good Club? But the topic of discussion is, well, we've got our various philanthropic empires. Each of us does different things and we have different passion projects. We need to find one umbrella cause to unite behind, and say, that from which all of our other projects can kind of serve the similar purpose. And the thing that they came up with, and this was another thing that I thought, no, this has to be a conspiracy theory. But it's reported widely in mainstream press. I mean, it's in The Guardian, it's in the Irish Times, it's in international press, New York Times, BBC, all the mainstream outlets covered it. The umbrella cause is overpopulation. And so when
Right.
I remember this story actually when it came out in 2009, and it's one of the reasons I really wanted to write the book is to get to the bottom of what this is all really about.
Hmm.
And the truth is, the Davos crowd, these Controligarchs, they are Malthusian.
Yeah.
They do believe the Earth is overpopulated. They do think that they can control reproduction rates, and they think that the only problem with the world is and humanity is that there's too much of it. Too many people sharing their resources that they want for themselves. It's notable that each of these guys has more than 2 children. I think Ted Turner's got something crazy like 6 or 8 or something.
Yeah.
George Soros has 4 or 5. So they're not really practicing what they preach, which would indicate they think we're having too many children or we're the problem. And
Right.
from that, I mean, I think I document quite extensively how the climate change debate, how the global health debate,
Yeah.
all of it really flows from a desire to see less people on planet Earth.
Yeah. One of the people who's had a lot of children, and who you talk about in the book, is Elon Musk. And he sort of gets a pass in public parlance because of his support for Donald Trump and MAGA, for example, during last year's election. But you show him no quarter in this book. You pretty much make the case that he's got his fingers deeply ensconced in this whole control oligarchs situation. Or is that an unfair way of how you describe him in the book? It was eye opening for me. A lot of the things that I learned from your book about Elon Musk, I'd never read or heard about before.
Yeah, well, he's got the Canada connection through his grandfather, who was booted from Canada, I think in like the 40s, for setting up the Technocracy Inc., which was deemed by Canadian authorities to be a subversive movement. But yeah, I mean, he's a
Imagine that. You only get kicked out of Canada today for being a Christian.
Well, they shipped him off down to, I believe, South Africa. That's kind of
Right.
how the family became South African.
Right.
But originally Canadian. He's got a Canadian connection there.
Yeah.
So, but Elon Musk is a self-described technocrat. Now, I have to give room for people to have changes of heart. I'm very
Yeah.
skeptical of people's changes of heart, especially for political expediency.
Mhm.
And changing administrations. It seems like a lot of the people on the cover of the book have had changes of heart. Bill Gates,
Yes.
Zuckerberg,
Yes.
Bezos, all of them donated to Donald Trump's
Mhm.
inaugural fund and have gotten, preferential seating at events. So, I don't believe they're all actually having changes of heart. I would say in the case of Elon Musk, yeah, I definitely, exposed a lot of no good things that he has done and things
Yeah.
relating especially to electric vehicles and the amount of
Mhm.
surveillance and control those afford to these people, especially with the Neuralink I talk about in the
Yeah.
dystopian present chapter 9.
That
I
was
talk
shocking,
all
that part. I didn't realize that Neuralink, had caused so much damage, for example, to animals and things of that nature. That was a surprise. Were you
Yeah,
shocked when you learned
I
that about
apologize.
Neuralink?
That one I had a little fun. It's not fun. It's gruesome. But the monkeys chewing off their fingers and toes.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't
Wow.
hold back on that one. It is pretty
Yeah,
gruesome
that's a
stuff.
vivid
Thousands and
image.
thousands of animals have been
Wow.
implanted with microchips, and the results are not pretty.
Yeah. Talking bigger picture, and if you think this is an oversimplification, then tell me. But the Klaus Schwab connection, of course, you explained that he's eventually born out of Nazism. His father was a Nazi. He was born in 1938, around the time of the Anschluss. And so this Controligarchs almost looks like a reiteration of fascism.
Really, what is the end goal of these Controligarchs? And it is to have the full marriage of state power with, a capitalist type system, market economy, much like they have in China, to have a state-run capitalism type economy where you have all of the powers of, of an authoritarian government, but all of your losses are subsidized and borne by the people. And that's kind of what you have in China. It's the merger of capitalism with state power. That's what they seek. They actually are quite open about it. They just come up with really euphemistic and flowery sounding terms like public-private partnership. That's, by the way, in the post-Klaus Schwab era for the World Economic Forum, he stepped down just recently. Larry Fink of BlackRock will be taking his place. the World Economic Forum moving into the future. And they did it before, but they say their primary focus is going to be setting up public-private partnerships. And so how do these things work in practice? I mean, it sounds nice. The government and the private sector are getting together to help the people. That's not what's happening. It's like in America, we had it with the tech companies. A lot of the public-private partnership relates to surveillance. The tech companies working with the government, they get they get to violate your Fourth Amendment rights because they're a private company and you clicked I agree. But meantime, the government uses all of its resources to after that violation of your privacy has occurred, then they get to use all of the powers of the government to arrest you or ruin your life. That's one example. I think the pandemic showed just one gigantic layers and layers of public-private partnerships where the businesses would say, the government would say, you can't go out of your homes, or if you don't get a vaccine, you're going to get, your job taken away. But then there would be lawsuits. Your government can't force you to do things like medical experiments. And so, so then the corporations, would force people like, we'll fire you because we have a right to fire you at will if you don't take a experimental medication. So those are just a couple of examples. I mean, another example right now that we're experiencing of public-private partnerships, AKA fascism, is in the schools. Parents are demanding to see what their kids are being subjected to in schools. But they're using this education technology, ed tech, and the private companies are saying, well, these are trade secrets. This is proprietary information. We couldn't possibly let parents know what our company secrets are. And so therefore your kids just have to be brainwashed by some of this ed tech in the classroom. So that's kind of how public-private partnerships work. And you're exactly right. It's very much like fascism.
But it's deeper than that. In fact, I'm going to quote Ronald Reagan again, which I find is generally a safe thing to do. And he said, it's deeper than just these labels like left and right. He says, you and I are told we must choose between a left or right. But he says, but I suggest there's no such thing as a left or right. There is only an up or down. Up to man's age-old dream, the maximum of individual freedom consistent with order, or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism. Regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would sacrifice freedom for security have embarked on this downward path. And that's really who you're talking about in Controligarchs, isn't it?
That's a phenomenal quote, and that's exactly right.
Yeah. And so part of what you talk about in the book, too, is, let's face it, most of us, we feel like we're on what Reagan described as the ant heap, that we're ants and they're up there and they're so powerful and they're so great. But you say that in your book, you point to things that we can do in our own lives, citizen-led advocacy. We can fight this, can't we?
Yeah, there's a number of things you can do. I mean, first, everybody needs to wake up to the fact that there's so many things in the book that are not, it's not a conspiracy that they want digital ID. You're seeing it spread all across Europe. You combine digital ID with central bank digital currency, a centralized, they'll change it. Everybody knows about CBDCs now, but they'll change it. It's a centralized currency, much like they have now, but on a digital scale. And that will be kind of the end. It is a de facto social credit system. And then that is really the end goal here, is a social credit system where you are forced to comply with things that you ordinarily would not comply with because your life is going to be ruined. They don't even have to throw you in jail anymore. They just have to, threaten you with the inability to feed your family. And so the number one way we can resist this kind of thing is by spreading the word, because as more people figure it out, these Controligarchs, the Davos crowd, et cetera, they're forced to go back to the drawing board, come up with a new scheme. And I think, and this is why I don't just say that Elon Musk is totally a lost cause, because I see a lot of good things that he's done. For example, just with Twitter, that has become, the information flows so fast and so freely there that people are able to wake up masses before a new scheme can be concocted, and we're kind of able to stay a little bit ahead of the curve. But it's why information and sharing information is the number one thing that you can do, is waking up more people so that they can kind of, detect the next scheme coming down the pike. There's a whole bunch of other recommendations, things that are easy to do. I mean, you need to
Right.
be tracking your both your data, but also your spending on things. Like, I mean, you need to make sure that you're not funding your own demise by giving money to Controligarchs. So really
Yeah.
jealously guarding your wallet. I mean, I recommend.
Hmm.
I did not shop at farmers markets or even really make a concerted effort to buy local. I, bought as much on Amazon and other services as I possibly could, not out of, just because of the convenience of it. And I thought, oh man, it's going to be very convenient. But especially with holidays coming up, I went, when I finished writing the book, I went to some of the Christmas markets and the farmers markets, buying crafts, things made by not, I know this, you're not going to defeat a trillionaire cartel by buying gifts at the farmers market, but it really does matter. Supporting your local economy,
Sure.
supporting your local farmers.
Hmm.
We found a meat supplier in like right down the road from us, and we buy our meats there, buy from the
Yeah.
farmers market, the foods. And if everybody were to do that kind of thing, you'd be able to starve these beasts a little
Hmm.
better.
Everything counts in large amounts, doesn't it? And in fact, we've seen significant consumer boycotts have great effect. Just look at what happened to poor Budweiser when they decided to use a man posing as a woman as their spokesperson. It didn't go over very well. Sort of like flat stale beer on a hot day. But
Exactly.
Seamus, I want to get your take on a situation that's happening in Canada right now. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're probably aware of something called UNDRIP, which is part of Agenda 2030 that you talk about in your book. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. UNDRIP is the United Nations. Is essentially what it says is that any land that Indigenous peoples lived on in places like Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, that they have some superior claim to that land. Well, what's happened in the province of British Columbia is that the provincial government has adopted UNDRIP into domestic law. And the courts recently, in a case in Richmond, BC, which was sort of one of the posher parts of Vancouver, British Columbia, has said that essentially people who own land, and we're talking about people who own expensive properties on golf courses and things like this, that they've now been notified that they have to give up their land, that their land is being expropriated by the government, so that it can be handed over to this Cowichan tribe, which really has no coherent connection or proof of ownership of the land. But now that it's hit these people like a truck, that they're going to lose their land, now they're organizing and they're trying to figure out how to fight this. This is an example, though, of what you talk about, how these policies that are dreamed up in the Davos crowd, once they hit us on Main Street, are really horrifying. Imagine, losing your home, losing generational title to your home, but it cuts all the way down to the whole concept of ownership of private property, doesn't it?
You're exactly right. And when they said it, they thought they were so clever and so smart in Davos with "you will own nothing and be happy." And it's really become a rallying cry for people who want to resist this takeover. And by the way, I mean, it's actually Bill Gates. So it's it sounds kind of like socialist, or like we're all going to sing Kumbaya and we can all share everything.
Yeah.
But it's really like a Bill Gates type invention where you rent everything. You don't own
Yeah.
anything, and I think everybody is hating this kind of software as a service. You got to pay $10, $5, $50 a month for everything. I mean, like a lot of cars now, like BMWs and nicer luxury cars are charging people 10, 20, $50 a month just to use certain features of the car, like the sensors or the remote start features. Everything is kind of
Hmm.
moving to this subscriber based model. And that's what they want. And also they want you to pay rent forever, but not actually own anything. So this UNDRIP seems very much like the plan to get you to own nothing. And I can promise you, you won't be happy. And I think people are
No,
sensing that.
no, when you're kicked off your own property, that's not exactly going to make people happy. I'm curious, Seamus, do you see what the Trump administration is doing now? And let's broaden it out to say MAGA. And I mean, and my take on MAGA is that it's kind of a made in America response to globalism. At least that's one way to look at it, and that's what it's looking like. In the first, just short of a year of Donald Trump's presidency. Do you think that's an accurate way of looking at it? In other words, do you think that the Trump administration is consciously trying to take this stuff on? That is, all the things that the Controligarchs want to do, and that what's in Agenda 2030. You think that MAGA is really trying to stop all of that? Because it looks like in places like Italy and Argentina and Hungary and other places that there's a rejection of all of this. And that seems to be encouraging. Do I have false hope about perhaps the defeat of the Controligarchs?
No, I don't think so. I think people are waking up, and I think, demanding more. I mean, if like Trump is his policies are actually quite, uh, tame. At least on the immigration, everybody hyperventilates, but it's like his deportation numbers are so much lower. I mean, they're around the same at least as Barack Obama's,
Yeah.
which is. I mean, we took in 10 million, and I know Canada's taken in a lot,
Yeah.
a whole lot, and
Our per
it's not like
capita
he's.
immigration will be higher than America's going
Yeah,
forward
I
now with
think
the Trump
I think
changes.
that's
Yeah,
definitely right. The spike I
yeah,
saw, I couldn't believe it. But
yeah,
in any
yeah,
case, like I mean, the policies are pretty common sense. And so Canada first makes sense. America first makes sense. And I think people are kind of waking up to it, where it's just like, look, we don't have to be a dumping ground for we've got our own problems. Our citizens have our own problems. Apparently fighting to not have their homes taken by the government, and what turned into, if not for the tribes, then for like the migrants or something. It's just,
yeah,
I think more important people are waking up to uh, Donald Trump's policies of putting your own citizens first, and reestablishing some form of national sovereignty against the globalist and control oligarch forces is a common sense proposal. I hope it's not too late. But I think it is spreading. I think that's what whether
yeah,
it's in Argentina or the other countries who have elected more Trumpian figures lately is showing.
yeah, yeah. We're praying for a change in Canada. Sadly, we're still suffering through the sort of Trudeau era. Trudeau is gone, but his ghost is still alive and well in Ottawa, sadly. And when I say ghost, his economic advisor, also known as Marks Carney. But anyway, we've talked about a Controligarchs, great book, really enjoyed it. People can find that on our reading list, also on Amazon. But I want to spend the remainder of our time with you, if you don't mind, Seamus, talking about some of your other books. There's a book called Fallout. It's a best-selling book. It's described to here Fallout, nuclear bribes, Russian spies, and the Washington lies that enriched the Clinton and Biden dynasties. Um, Now, I haven't read this book yet, but based on having read Controligarchs, I noticed that some of the people that are on the cover of Fallout are also mentioned in Controligarchs. So maybe you could tell us what Fallout is all about, and also if there's a connection between what we would read about in Fallout and what you've written about also in Controligarchs.
Yeah, thank you. Fallout, that really is the sequel to Peter Schweitzer's book Clinton Cash, which
Uh,
exposed, and we can bring in the Canadians here. It exposed this deal with a bunch of Canadian miners, and maybe you could tell me. And I've only got like 2 or 3 minutes before another interview, so I
yep,
appreciate all the time you've given me.
yep,
But these Canadian miners, a guy named Frank Justra, Ian Telfer, a handful, Stephen Doddles, a handful of others. I mean, they're really, really impressive guys,
yeah,
Canadians who have mastered the art of mineral exploration. Well,
yeah,
they got this, it was actually like a 10-year long deal. It's called the Uranium One deal. It was a Canadian company. It got bought out by the Russians. It ended up buying up a bunch of uranium mines in the United States, and became a huge deal. Bill Clinton, it couldn't have happened without him. There were mines all across the world in Kazakhstan, Namibia, etc. Robert Friedland, if you know that name, he was involved.
yes, hmm,
And so, really impressive mining guys. So we discovered that this deal involving Canadian miners who had bought up uranium mines in the United States wanted to sell it out to the Russian state-owned nuclear agency, Rosatom. And Rosatom, it also manages the nuclear warheads and nuclear,
oh, great,
the umbrella corporation. Now, we never like alleged or even believed that the uranium mines would be used for bombs. Russia has 6,000 plus warheads. They don't need to go and mine fresh uranium from Wyoming and ship it back to Russia or Kazakhstan to refine it. But the whole purpose of this deal, whether the Canadians knew it or not, or whether the Clintons knew it or not, what the Russians liked about it is they could kneecap, mothball these American mines and get us totally hooked on Russian nuclear fuel supply. And that accounts for more than 10% of the total electricity generation in our country.
Really?
And so what this
Wow.
was an energy play. And so we reported that in Clinton Cash. It made a lot of noise. A lot of people, they tried to debunk it. No, uranium's not leaving the United States for Russia. Never said that it was. But so I had to follow up on it. And so this book, I wrote it with John Solomon, who's a just phenomenal investigative journalist in the United States, really a legend, award-winning guy, was at the Associated Press, Newsweek, everywhere, Washington Post, I believe, back when those publications meant something. So I worked with John Solomon on this, and we really exposed that Russia has this consistent strategy of wielding energy supply as a weapon. And we actually predicted the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We touched on a lot of the Biden-Burisma deals in Ukraine, the oil and gas deals in Ukraine with the corrupt Ukrainian company. And we really tied it all together, and you kind of called this current situation. And it's all really derives from the Obama administration and, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Vice President Joe Biden. They had this strategy of appeasement and giving the Russians what they wanted, thinking that would, make them become closer friends of ours. Obviously did not work. And so that was that book. That was the last one before I really started to look into the billionaire class of Bill Gates and Soros and all the rest. But certainly plenty of overlap. Soros is in the book. He had a lot of dealings in Ukraine, and others are as well.
Wow. I'm looking forward to reading that one, and also your previous book with Peter Schweitzer, Compromised. Folks, we've been talking with Seamus Bruner. He's the author of a book called Controligarchs. I've read it. I loved it. Really fascinating. And I now understand even better, having spoken with its author for this while. I want to thank you so much, Seamus, for being with us here, being our special guest here on Gray Matter. Thanks for your books. We hope you keep writing them. I'm looking forward to the next one, and also to reading the rest of your library, which, folks, can be found on Amazon and elsewhere. I know he's discouraged using Amazon, but it's a great place to find books. I also encourage you to follow Seamus on X, as I do, because he posts a lot of really interesting stuff. So, Seamus, I want to thank you so much for being our special guest. It's been a real pleasure meeting with you today and learning more about you and your books.
Leighton, thank you so much. I'm really honored that you had me on, and appreciate all the time you've given me, and just really fun. I'll be happy to come back anytime. If you want to skip Amazon, because the irony is not lost on me that having a book about Bezos monopolizing everything. You can go to Controligarchsbook.com. I've got the independent retailers listed there, the ones that you can get it from without giving Bezos more bucks.
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate you doing that, correcting me. Although I have to say, my own book is on Amazon, so mea culpa.
That's all right.
Anyway, God bless, and best of luck. I'm looking forward to. I hope that you're planning on writing another book. I'm sure you are. But thanks for being with us here today. It's been a real joy.
Thank you so much, Leighton. All right, talk soon.